Could you briefly introduce yourself and your role in short drama industry?
Thank you for having me. I'm Sandra. I'm the founder and editor of Behind the Verticals. And essentially, Behind the Verticals is a Substack-based newsletter and media brand covering all things vertical drama, the industry. We have expert interviews. We do a roundup of the news of the week. And yeah, really the idea is to bring together all the news that are relevant to vertical drama professionals and those aspiring to be.
How did you first get into short drama?
I came across vertical dramas or short dramas through TikTok, as so many, and my background is in digital marketing, media, and journalism. So I was very curious about just like the back end of things, the industry. I started researching as I do. I like anything that has to do with tech and innovation and sort of new business models. So got really interested in that. And then I saw a gap in terms of like, kind of like a B2B publication that's dedicated solely to vertical drama. I mean, there's obviously what you do, which is amazing. And there's Vertical Drama Love, which Jen Cooper runs. I believe you had her on in the last forum. Those are publications that obviously I also came across during my research. And yeah, it was just like something I was looking to do. And it came at the right time because I was looking to kind of create like a sort of B2B Substack publication anyway. So it just kind of like, all came together at the right time for me.
So, what gap would you like to fill in this short drama ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, definitely bringing all the news together that's relevant to industry professionals, but also to those looking to enter the space. There's obviously a huge demand. I definitely also want to be sort of a resource for everyone to be able to find some information or education, if you will. So I have interviews with screenwriters in the space, with producers, directors, actors, and really the idea is to give people kind of a look behind the scenes. How are things done? And obviously, the industry is moving at a rapid pace. So, people who have been in this space for 1.5 years, 2 years are already what you would call a veteran and have seen it all, so to speak. So it's just really interesting to everyone kind of looking to move into the space to hear from these people.
Because our interview author before, they say they
Mhm.
were firstly they're addicted to microdramas, and then they will find their kind of start their career in microdrama. Are you like a fan of microdrama?
It's kind of a funny one. Like I back in the day, I used to watch like soaps and telenovelas, and I definitely consider myself sort of a pop culture addict, and like I love anything that has to do with film and TV. So when I came across them, I was like, oh, okay. So I realized some of the concepts are familiar, and obviously, I've been also looking at like K-drama and what's going on in Asia. But my background is in media studies. So the minute I came across vertical drama, I obviously watched them because I'm like, okay, I want to understand how this works and what is this? So obviously piqued my curiosity. But then I was immediately also like kind of like putting myself in the shoes of kind of like behind the camera and like, how does this work? What is this? Where did this come from? Why is this so popular? So I started digging straight away as well.
Yeah, I want to understand your process of digging those
Mhm.
information, how you dig up information.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this was last year. Now there's so much more. That was really before I would say all the mainstream media was starting to write about vertical drama. I mean, now basically every day you have like mainstream media reporting on it, and every day when there's a conference, there's a panel, and obviously there's news coming out of that as well. There's partnerships being announced every day. So there's much more happening. But back then it was like basically your resources. As I was saying, like, there's some other experts that I was following, and LinkedIn is definitely the place to be, both in terms of making connections, but really finding like the latest news. And obviously, everyone is sharing generously. There's some WhatsApp groups that I'm part of as well. But yeah, really like, from Google alerts to LinkedIn, to connecting people to just like doing whatever I can.
Your background is media
Mhm.
study, right? Research.
Mhm.
How does that help with the behind the verticals?
I used to work in sort of like freelance journalism and broadcasting, like way back when, before I moved into digital marketing. I worked with like, big brands and in-house and then with advertising agencies. So like I have a lot of like transferable skills and like you said, I have a master's degree in media studies. So I kind of like, have researched a lot of like concepts, back in the day, kind of when blogging was a thing. I wrote my master's thesis on that, for example. I wrote on broadcasting. So anytime there's a new sort of like technology or concept, especially as it pertains to media, I would always look into it, no matter if it was for academic or professional or personal purposes. So yeah, there wasn't that much information. Obviously, there's a tradition in Asia, so I was like, digesting any information that was available in that regard as well. Having said that, obviously coming from like more the English speaking world, if you will, my goal was to kind of create a publication that's primarily targeting English speaking audiences. Obviously, the US being a big market, Canada, the UK. We just hosted a webinar on like vertical drama in the UK, for example. Europe is a smaller market, but things are happening. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that. Australia as well. So just like those more English speaking markets.
Because I also do interviews like I'm
Hmm.
interviewing right now, right?
Yeah.
Most of my questions are from industry perspective. For example,
Hmm.
I will ask, how do people define short drama and what's the core
Hmm.
genre? I will ask you later.
Hmm.
And mostly from the industry
Hmm.
perspective to know how to write short drama and what's the best suggestion to a newcomers. So what is your interest when you do the interview? For example, some people were like the personal, feeling towards like short drama or some personal stories. What's your focus when you do the interview?
It obviously depends who I'm interviewing, but it my goal really, we have a big sizable community now, both on Substack as subscribers, as people who are following behind the verticals, but also on LinkedIn. We have both the LinkedIn page as well as like a vertical drama professionals group. And really the idea is to get as much information that's kind of a bit yeah, I don't want to say paywalled, but because that's a term that is obviously being used for like for apps and platforms, but it's kind of a bit gate kept. So if you haven't been on a set for vertical, you've heard maybe some stories, but like I can speak to people to really give us that behind scenes look. So really, from like how does your crew look like? What are some lessons learned? How many episodes have you shot on your recent project? How did this all look like? If I'm talking to a writer, like, or someone who has self-financed a vertical drama, those are things that, I see in all the different groups and whatnot that I'm in, that are being asked, like, how can I do that? How do I like make that first step? So those are, for example, questions. AI comes up all the time. I'm personally very curious about that, having dabbled in like AI filmmaking myself. So that's obviously always a question. And then also like I'm always curious, just like what is everyone predicting, even though no one's a fortune teller, but what is everyone predicting kind of for the next 12 months? I wouldn't even dare to ask like, years down the road because the industry is just changing so rapidly. So even in the few months that I've been covering things, things have evolved so much. So I'm always just curious. And, some answers are around business models, how they might change. Storytelling is a big thing. Like will the storylines that we're seeing right now change to like show different perspectives, different tropes, different genres. And obviously, like also coming from a marketing background, branded verticals are a hot topic right now, with lots of stakeholders that I talk about. So that's obviously something that I'm quite curious about when I speak to people at the moment.
So why do you think short drama have become so popular? And in your view, how are they different from traditional film and TV?
Yeah, what I found really striking through my research, through having conversations, it's really like realizing that vertical drama is a tech industry at its core, but it obviously uses traditional filmmaking, TV making sort of skills and knowledge. And it's obviously, the immediacy of having it on your phone, shorter time periods to have to like look at something, but still being able to consume a story. To be honest, when I discovered vertical dramas, I was like kind of craving more romance storytelling. I just like didn't see many. Now I think there's a trend now to see. I see, also mainstream romance being produced now again, thankfully. But that was really like filling the gap for me personally. And yeah, what I'm hearing, like for example, from people like Jen Cooper, who runs Vertical Drama Love, it's really the fans love that connection. The actors are so important, having sort of that access through Instagram, for example. Actors are really like, available to the fans and, they have a huge following. And I think, yeah, definitely that's a big factor for the success as well.
How do you personally define short drama, and what do you think it's the core, it's or a less essence of short dramas?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, short drama, vertical drama, microdrama. I mean, I use them pretty much interchangeably at this point. Of course, you could go into like the details and say, yeah, microdrama could also be horizontal, but like for my purposes, it's mostly vertical. The storytelling obviously comes with like a sort of a blueprint at this point, right? There's a hook at the beginning. You want to hook someone straight away into the story, and there's cliffhangers at, the end of every episode. Usually there's a paywall. Obviously if it's branded, there's, different ways around like the financing side of things. But yeah, I think at this point where we are, it's really like the storytelling is kind of like quite bespoke. There's a blueprint for it, and obviously the stories around it are, evolving. It started maybe with like the, CEO stories and billionaire stories, but from what I'm hearing now, being involved with like different actors and writers and producers, like those stories are also surely like kind of changing at this point.
After conducting some interviews,
Mhm.
are there any particular memorable, like, or interesting moments we like to share?
Yeah, I mean, what's really, and I think also fitting for this context is how many women are involved in this industry, and also women 40 plus, which, some industries it's trickier. There's so many writers, actors as well, even though those are sometimes support or mostly supporting roles. And yeah, so I just generally there is, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, a lot of the sort of decision makers are male, but still, like I would say, it's quite striking how many women are involved. So I think it's always just generally very exciting to be able to speak to someone that's, achieved great things in such a short amount of time, and especially as a woman.
Mention about the gender as a woman
Mhm.
yourself. Do you feel gender has shaped the experience in any way, like a positive way or a negative way?
Oh, well, definitely like in a positive way, again, like, just seeing how open the industry is to women of any age. Obviously diversity is a big topic right now, what I'm hearing from experts. Obviously, and I'm hearing things are being done in that regard as well. So hopefully we will be seeing more of that going forward as well. Having said that, the storytelling is obviously still primarily targeting women. There are some storylines that women don't want to see though anymore. So I know writers who are changing that. I know producers and directors who are working on projects that are kind of more yeah, sort of like aligned to, I want to say maybe Western values when it comes to that. But I'm also hearing from experts that they're looking specifically at male audience stories because that seems to be underserved as well. And also from like, when I go to a conference or so, I'm hearing also from like men that they would want to watch more of, vertical drama, short drama, but there are just not maybe as many stories for them right now. So I think that is also something that's changing.
So speaking of the male stories,
Mhm.
oh, female story. Let's talk about
Mhm.
female stories first. You mentioned about there are some storylines that are not
Mhm.
very acceptable for the
Yeah.
audience. What kind of, can you give me example? What kind of storylines it's not acceptable or character
Yeah,
design?
I mean, speaking to actors, speaking to writers, speaking to anyone on set, it's mostly those like storylines around slapping someone, or I've heard from actors they were on set where they had to like push a child down, I don't know, a bridge or something. Obviously, it doesn't actually happen like that, but you're trying to that on film. So, there's certain like movements that happen, and it's just things like that. Everyone I've spoken to, they're taking intimacy coordination really seriously. But I heard from, actors even up to last year that, that wasn't always the case. That wasn't so defined. So they were kind of on their own. So I think those people that I've spoken to, they are taking things like that very seriously at this point.
So what do you think it can be improved? I mean, for example, the female characters, what kind of female character would you like, or the people you've spoken to, what they like?
Yeah, what I find really inspiring is definitely and mostly it's people who have women who have taken kind of a stab at creating their own verticals and self-finance them that have like kind of produced them around stories that are relevant to mature women. So, 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus even that, maybe have like a group of women as well, where maybe the women are not always just playing like a villain or a matriarch or something, that, just the storytelling is more empowering for women. But also like with just the generic storylines, even if we're sticking to the tried and tested tropes, just like the ending is maybe more empowering for women. There doesn't need to be, slapping. There's a other way to solve that, just in terms of storytelling. So there's arguments, on both, and that, we should try to stick to what works. But then if you don't try all these different approaches, then also the numbers won't be able to speak for themselves and say, okay, people actually prefer this. And again, I bring up Jan Cooper a lot, but yeah, she always talks about having spoken to so many fans over the last year and a half, 2 years. Everyone who's been following this space and watching is getting also tired of these kind of tried and tested storylines. So they're looking for something different, also like branching out into different genres. So I'm hearing thriller is quite big. Horror will be, a topic this year for sure. Obviously, YA, young adult content is being produced as well. So, yeah, I think the fans that have been around for a while, they also want to see, something different and new. Without obviously, you don't have to sway all the way away from what works, but there's definitely like lots of creatives out there, story writers that have great ideas.
Yeah, I hope to see that those kind of variety of stories in
Yeah.
North America as well, because here
Yeah.
in China we have half male-oriented stories and half
Hmm.
female-oriented stories. Like
Hmm.
CEO romance story, just part of the female-oriented stories.
Yeah.
Have you seen any popular proven records of any horror or thriller? I'm just curious, personally curious. Let's pause for a second. Imagine you're in a crowded marketplace. Vendors selling cakes, jewelries, all kinds of things. And you are one of vendors trying to sell a story. What kind of story will you tell? And more importantly, how do you keep people stop listening and actually pay? That's the narrative logic of short drama. I explain this in my book, Short Drama Writing 101. Write what platforms want. It's available on Payhip, Amazon, and Google Playbooks. Now let's back to the video.
Once I haven't seen any per se, but to be honest, it's not like horror definitely is not my kind of thing. I know there's definitely like apps that have them, but I know of many writers who are actively working or have just submitted horror projects. And from what I'm hearing, it's something that the platforms are looking for. And obviously, it is also a topic that is also of interest to men, for example. So also, opening up another audience in that regard, as earlier discussed. So I think right now, a lot of it is, from what I'm hearing, in production or about to be in production. So towards the end of the year, we should be seeing more of that.
About the branded short dramas,
Mhm.
have you seen any successful one or interesting case you want to work with the audience?
Yeah, so I mean, like kind of like just at the moment, sort of in North America, P&G did the micro series. Actually interviewed the head writer. They had multiple writers on the project, but I was able to speak to one of them, and so that's like a recent sort of case study. Crocs just had one come out. I've not kind of seen the success yet, but it just came out, so I can't speak to like numbers or anything. There was an attempt with Maybelline kind of towards the end of last year. Having said that, it wasn't filmed like directly just as a vertical per se, and also wasn't created necessarily by people who are producing verticals on a day-to-day basis. So that was kind of a bit of a critique point the industry had on that. But yeah, I know there are definitely like agencies and people actively working on that. having worked in marketing, I know especially the bigger the company, the longer things can take, which kind of clashes a bit with the approach of like verticals that are produced so quickly and, work at rapid speed. So, yeah, it will really come down to, finding the right stakeholders, getting approvals as soon as possible. As soon as there's like, IP or branding or any sort of legal aspect involved, things can take a bit of time. So I think just what I'm seeing, all these conferences right now, it's a hot topic. So I think, and again, towards the end of the year, we probably will be seeing more of this as well.
Why do you think those brands are interested in
I
microdramas?
mean, for some of them, it's just like, jumping on like what's trending or what's popular. But just yesterday, there was, the announcement that, for example, in the US specifically, microdramas have more engagement than the streamers on mobile. So, I mean, that's already a huge sort of indicator in terms of numbers where things are going. And it's a different way at things. It's not your kind of plain advertising. It's a different way to kind of bring in a brand, ideally organically into the story without being like too obvious. So, if it's a lipstick, there's, storylines like you can, create around that without having to be like, okay, we're presenting to you lipstick so and so. I've also seen some case studies around travel, like obviously the, tourism boards have a huge opportunity, just shooting something in a certain city or so to like, talk about the sites, film in front of those sites. Again, with micro dramas or vertical dramas, budget is a thing. So obviously keeping it to the few locations is always quite important. But and I think for everyone looking to step into this space, obviously working with a brand helps with the financing of things. It's just, a matter of getting the right people in the room and kind of like working through timelines and all that. And yeah, I think once it's more established, over the course of this year, more and more brands will likely also follow.
You already interviewed writer of renditional dramas.
Mhm.
What's your take?
I mean, again, this was like a big sort of, I mean, it's quite interesting because P&G obviously essentially started soaps, like soap dramas per se, right? So it's kind of like almost like taking it full circle. I think what I've heard from the interviews, obviously it was a matter of trying to find the ways to bring this all into play organically. So I think this was a first attempt. If this, works numbers wise, and again, for any brand, ROI is a huge topic, like just seeing, a return on investment. If this all adds up, they're also looking to potentially do more. So I think they're open to trials now, and I think if and how this, sure they have some lessons learned from this as well, then we'll be probably seeing more of that in the future.
Also, because a lot of the audience are women, it's very
Mhm.
centered. So maybe the lipsticks or makeups are willing, brands are willing to try it.
Yeah, and I mean it's, fashion brands like high-end fashion luxury brands over the last few months, there has been a trend. They've been creating a lot of short films. So like this could be also the next step. Of course, for them it will all come down to making it like really elevated, but there are definitely, producers, directors who are really focusing on cinematography to make the, whatever shot look really elevated and really like cinematic. So there's definitely, I mean, the opportunities are endless, right? It's just a matter of, trialing it, investing in it, learning from what's working and what isn't working, and then kind of like iterating on that.
And what do you see AI? And
Hmm.
because AI was booming in China last year,
Yeah.
AI, we call AI motion comics,
Yeah.
and it contribute a lot of the revenues in the last year
Hmm.
in Chinese market. So how do you see AI motion comics? Is AI gonna replace the vertical, let's say, actors or
Hmm.
creators?
So what I'm hearing from literally anyone I've spoken to is no, AI will not replace actors, or at least no one's trying to do that yet. Animated is a whole different story, and I think there's lots of opportunity. As I mentioned, I've myself dabbled in AI filmmaking, just because I find that obviously there is definitely lots of opportunity. So I think that can definitely work. But again, coming back to that, people in that watch vertical dramas love that human connection with the actor, both like watching them, but then also being able to connect with them on Instagram, for example. That is something that, I think makes vertical dramas what they are. So I don't think that will go away. But what I'm hearing from many, of course, they use AI to like help with production, especially post-production with like backgrounds, VFX, things like that. So I know of a lot of like studios or producers who are working either right now actively on capabilities, or have already developed certain things. I mean, in terms of, I know obviously kind of the old school of like adapting Asian storylines, scripts into like, for North America. From what I heard, not I have not interviewed anyone, but what I've been kind of seeing in my research is that AI was used quite a lot to just like localize, translate, and maybe some of it didn't translate so much, but from what I'm seeing, all like kind of new verticals that are being produced with like kind of talent in the US and Canada, UK, they're all scripts that have been developed for the platform in North America or in the UK or wherever. So there's a cultural element that comes into they're all unique, written by a human. Of course, like, any writer probably uses AI to like fact check or maybe check, for typos or things like that. But the stories themselves, they're like human written.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
Hmm.
the scripts cannot be replaced for
Yeah.
now. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably see in the next year or this year, it's
Hmm.
2026 already. We'll probably see a lot of AI motion comics
Yeah.
exporting, like distributing overseas. How do you see the future of short drama is?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, that's a question I always like to ask everyone as well. And no one is a fortune teller. I think right now, what we're seeing, especially like in North America, there's lots of new platforms or apps coming up, almost every day. It will be, interesting to see which ones prevail. And a lot of experts are telling me that, in the end, it will come down to business models and also maybe, if say five apps will kind of prevail, they all become known for like, a certain genre, for example, that there's an app that's, everyone knows they can go to for horror or one for romance, one for thrillers, for example. So it will be really interesting. Definitely what I'm seeing is branching out into different genres. I'm also hearing like talks about reality shows and documentaries and verticals. I mean, those will be all like, tests, I guess, at the beginning and then learning from that. But yeah, like the storytelling is definitely changing, that's for sure. And then, yeah, the business model with the coin system and like paying for like a one-off, that will be interesting to see if like over time that will be able to sustain itself or if there's like, more an ad-based approach needed or other approaches. Again, the branded content is another solution around that. So I think those will be the big topics: storytelling, business models, platforms, apps. Those are like the things that are definitely changing this year.
Yeah, from those apps that are emerging from
Hmm.
state, right? What's their background? Like technology or game or web
It's
novel?
it's a mix. And obviously even the big streamers are, experimenting, like Netflix is adding like vertical sort of streaming capabilities and things like that. But it is a mix. So there are production studios and apps that are kind of stacked with like I want to say Hollywood veterans, right? They obviously, need tech support. So there are definitely people working with them. Others are like more from like the tech side of things. So yeah, it will be interesting, really, especially once there's so many that people don't even know kind of where to go. It will be interesting. Plus, TikTok and Instagram are, implementing their own sort of like capabilities. So it will be also, especially with Instagram, it will be interesting how that actually plays out. I've only seen it like kind of like sketched out, but I don't know how it will actually end up working and how the uptake will be. But I have seen creators now also like, because IP is such a big thing and writer credits are being, not always given and all that, like people are experimenting with putting verticals directly on Instagram or YouTube or something just to see. So there are ways around it, but like what will actually like work long term, that I can also not predict.
Yeah, mention about the writer's credits.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know a lot of short drama don't have credits.
Yeah.
Right. It
So
should be a issue.
for the IP, of course, like, if a writer has an idea, they basically right now give over that idea to the platform or whoever, is paying, and that's it. And they just get paid for the script. The credits is also the thing. Like I've seen some production companies that, put everything now with a delay on IMDb at least. So that's great. I have seen some production companies that try to create like posts on Instagram where they also credit their whole, the crew and writers and everyone just to make sure that's captured. But yeah, like if there was a way to credit also in app, that would obviously also be ideal. But yeah, there's definitely scope for improvement.
Oh, I never watched the microdrama till the end in the app. So is there any credit at the end of the microdrama or not?
Yeah,
Nope.
I mean, not from, I mean, I think I've seen one or two. Yes. I don't know. Usually it's not. So, so it really, but I know there are definitely people out there who are trying to make that a thing. So again, there's so many things that be changed or could be changed. So it's just like, yeah, a matter of priorities, I guess.
Yeah. Is anything else you think it should be changed in this industry?
I mean, yeah, for like I said, for personally, the coin system maybe not as sustainable long term, especially like, with the economy and how things are going. Like, I have a background in loyalty marketing. I'm constantly thinking like, what could be a solution? Like, is there like a sort of one size fits all? And obviously, I know there's apps where you can like pay like a, monthly or whatever subscription, and that's a way around it. But again, then if you have 20, 30 apps where you'd like to watch something, then that's, then it's also like a prioritizing probably for the fans. So again, that's where the niching down might come into play. So it will be really, really interesting. I mean, right now the audience is booming, it's growing, more and more people are learning about it. And yeah, like I was saying, there's a study now that engagement is so much higher than with the streamers as well. But at some point there will come like a cap where everyone's kind of seeing the same stories, and it's like getting a bit maybe, you know, bored or tired of the same. And then, it will be really interesting what happens with, the business models. How are the platforms going to go about this? Will people stop paying at some point? So yeah, and based on that, the business model will have to evolve one way or another.
Is you are still in what we call RAP, in-app purchase.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
because it's not competitive yet. It's
Yeah.
not very competitive. Once it's very competitive, the
Yeah.
ROI is dropping,
Hmm.
then somehow you will switch the model into IA.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you like switch to in-app advertisement, which means
Hmm.
you have to have an ecosystem where
Yeah.
people can place the order. So maybe TikTok can do that.
Yeah.
TikTok launched the app called My Pine
Yeah.
Drama.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And obviously, Instagram is also trialing something. What I saw, it will be in app, but again, that doesn't mean that there won't be an app if it works and the trial. So, exactly, there needs to be an ecosystem that supports this. And I mean, those apps are kind of already have that. So, it will be interesting to see, yeah, what comes out of it.
Is the Instagram's feature launched yet? I heard rumors it's launched yet.
It's I've only seen it on like social marketing sites as like a screenshot. So like it's being like potentially trialed with a small group of creators. I don't have access to it because yeah, I'm not 100% sure how it will work yet. I don't know if it's rolled out, but I think there are definitely some people that likely have, because somehow they found out about it, and I've seen people post about it. So yeah.
Ah, okay.
I'm
I,
sure
I
I'm
saw I
sure
saw
we'll
people.
find out soon. Not too concerned.
Okay, yeah, I keep an eye on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, is there anything else you want to share?
And just like what I always like to ask everyone I speak to, and what the community asks me is like, how do I get into this space? So basically everyone and myself always say get on LinkedIn, connect with people. That's really, I've spoken to so many people who've gotten their first gig in verticals through LinkedIn. So many opportunities are posted. And then, yeah, behind the verticals, we just like curate everything. We put all the opportunities we've come across. Obviously, we curate them and any news. So if you're struggling to keep up with anything that's going on in the space, we've got you covered. And then, yeah, like those in-depth interviews with professionals as well.
Yeah. And our suggestion is to tap into this industry as fast as you can. If
Yeah,
you're from
definitely.
traditional
It's the best time
music.
to get into this space. Yeah.
Yeah. Because before, when microdrama is booming in China, that was 2022,
Mm-hmm.
the quality was very low. So
Mm.
I wasn't tap into the industry that just like about a year later after the booming, I
Mm-hmm.
tapped into. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of in the early stage.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I
that's
mean,
the
right
most.
now, definitely, at least in North America and like Europe and even more so, yeah, it's early days for sure.
Yeah, it's a good time. So some
Mm-hmm.
of my friends, they just graduate from US or like Korea. They
Mm-hmm.
study film study and they kind of work as a system director or
Okay.
first AD or something in long films and
Mm-hmm.
they switch their career to microdrama. And
Yeah.
now they already become hit microdrama directors. And
Oh,
now they're
okay.
super busy. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
super busy.
Okay.
But right now, if you from like say film background or
Mm-hmm.
TV series background, if you want to tap into short drama, microdrama right now, it's really hard unless you find your own investments because
Yeah,
you don't have
exactly.
any credits of shooting microdramas.
I mean, that's what I've been hearing. Like last year, it was definitely like, the Wild West, and it was so easy to get a gig, especially for example, as a writer. If you're an actor, I'm hearing like they get like thousands of self-tapes now for a role. It's definitely become more competitive for sure. So self-financing is the way to go for a lot of people. Often a credit is already asked for, like when, a platform is looking for writers, for example. So yeah, anything that, people can do to create something themselves, figure things out. But then also I'm hearing like, selling into platforms or finding distribution is also not always easy. There's either sacrifices that need to be made, either budgetary IP sacrifices or the platforms are then kind of like wishing they had more involvement, which they cannot when something's produced. So it's like, it's tricky. Like, but yeah, there's definitely still opportunity for sure. Anyone looking to get into the space, now is a great time.